Shabbat Shalom from Temple Concord. In our Torah portion readings, we're up to the end of the book of Numbers, and we're reading Parshat Matot this week, which brings forth a theme that we've had before that sounds ancient and yet altogether all too modern. We're reading the story of how the Israelites are dealing with the Midianite neighbors. And there's this verse in the Torah portion that comes a little way in chapter 31 where it says, "Avenge the Israelite people on the Midianites." So there's the sense of going off and attacking them and keeping the other side responsible for the attacks that they made to the Israelites. Sadly, we're living in a time we know where Israel still and her neighbors have challenges. And as the missiles continue to fall in Israel, although I pray that by the time Shabbat comes around, maybe those missiles will have stopped, and Israel continues to defend herself. And while I believe completely that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend herself, I'm also saddened by the challenge that we face. Our tradition from of old recognizes that relations with neighbors aren't always smooth, and that sometimes war has to be the answer. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to kill indiscriminately, but sometimes there's the reality where the only real answer left is to fight. And so in this case, in our Torah portion, our ancestors were told, go fight. And right now in Israel, our cousins are being told the same thing, that as long as Hamas is going to continue to behave in the way it's behaving, the only answer is to fight. So what do we do with that? How do we live with a tradition that says it's okay to fight, that says not only is it okay, but we must? How do we live with a tradition that says, yes, from time to time your neighbors are going to be your enemy? I think the answer is in how we recognize that teaching and how we compartmentalize it. Do we say that, yes, we're going to have this fighting and that we always live on edge and in fear? I don't believe so. I don't think that's the Jewish way. I think on the contrary, the Jewish way is to pursue peace at all costs, to do everything imaginable, but to always reserve the right, if necessary, to use war to maintain one's own safety and security. And I think ultimately that's what Israel is doing now. It isn't that Israel is looking for war. I don't think Israel ever really is looking for war. But when Israel is being attacked, what are its choices? And that's the message that we don't hear often enough, at least in our country these days, that Israel really doesn't have any choice. When missiles are raining down on streets and people are running to bomb shelters left and right, there are no options. But there are options for us. This past week, a group of us joined together at the Islamic Society with our Muslim friends. We shared a fast day and we broke the fast together. It's those kinds of interactions where we study together, where we enjoy a meal together, where we learn together, where friendships are formed, where fear is lessened. Those are the kinds of steps that make the wars of the future less needed. If more of us can do more of that, finding a way to see in the other a potential friend rather than a potential enemy, then we have a chance at correcting the challenge that we encounter in the text and correcting the challenge that we encounter in daily life. I can't promise we're going to solve all the issues, but I can say that if we each work hard, if we each reach out and move beyond the fear, deal with the reality as cold as it may be, but then move forward towards peace, that we can leave our children a better world than we found. So what can we do right now? We'll call our senators and our congressmen, and I encourage you to do that. Call them and thank them for supporting Israel. Go buy an Israel bond. Go to israelbonds.com online and buy a bond. It's a good investment, but it's also a great way to support the state of Israel. And if you collect tzedakah in your house, take the money that's in there and donate it to something in Israel. It almost doesn't matter what it is, but if there's money going to the land of Israel, then that's helpful and supportive. For us, we will continue to support Israel. We will continue to study. We will continue to reach out to our friends in the Jewish community and our friends in the Muslim community and the Christian community to make sure that peace and prosperity are the road we're traveling, so that the fear of war that we're enduring now becomes a memory, a distant memory at that. Shabbat services Friday evening will be at 6 o'clock. We'll be at Mill Run Park in Manlius. I hope you can join us. We'll also have a barbecue afterwards, hamburgers and hot dogs and all the fixins. Should be a wonderful evening together. The weather looks great. Shabbat morning services are at 11, preceded, of course, by Torah study at 10 and text study at 9. And the following week, we'll be back in the synagogue for services here at the temple at 6 o'clock. I hope you're having a wonderful summer, and I hope that you'll join with me in prayers for peace and prayers for success in war when we reach that moment that war is absolutely necessary. Let it be brief. Let as few people be killed as humanly possible. And let us resume or return to a pursuit of peace when each of us recognizes that together we are stronger and then we are better than if we are separated and full of fear. For now, Shabbat Shalom. I look forward to seeing you at the temple.